and forms of normalcy in what you can expect a person to behave like or act like. That's a little bit, it's not the exact definition I've written down, but it's kind of a little bit the way I want to guide the humanics aspect of what is causing us now, so many people, because I've never heard anybody say the scientific arguments for why it's crazy to believe this is coming anytime soon. So, you know, why are we not doing that? Is it based on we don't want to be admitting our denial that these Earth-like planets are so far beyond our reach? We need that kind of false hope right now? What do you think?
So the question is why we need false hope? Is that the question?
Why is that common? Because I'm not hearing conversations of people saying, hey, stop talking about Earth-like planets. It's you know, as likely as, you know, finding a 100% cure for cancer, which is not also as likely.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's somehow rooted, and I'm trying also to think on that recently. I think it's somehow rooted in the, you know, believing that we are really the masters of the exploitation of the environment, and somehow maybe we don't want to believe that. We would say, oh no, like, you know, we care for the environment, yeah, we understand all of this, but you know, deep inside that we conquered many species, and it, like, deep inside we're, you know, like, we somehow are driven by this kind of believing, like, oh, we are above all the species and we are the smartest. So these kind of beliefs, I think, they perpetuate this kind of thinking that you know, we can do it because we mastered you know, the environment. We exploit the environment to our benefits. We build technologies, we build cities, and we can go farther and farther. There is no end of what of boundaries or the intelligence of a human mind. So there is no limits for that,
But
no
don't you
boundaries.
find
So
that there's a lot of scientific illiteracy even among the experts who are excited talking about this? When you
oh,
look at the
I
scope,
think it's not related really to the scientific literacy. I think it's related more to the evolutionary cognitive dissonance that our species
please give
has
your
been.
definition of cognitive dissonance.
Well, cognitive dissonance simply saying is that is a your when your belief contradicts with your actions or your knowledge. So you know about something, but you do the thing that doesn't help, or you do the thing that is opposite of what you believe in, or you have contradictory beliefs in your mind. Is like, yes, I know that the population growth is a problem, but I still like to have kids, so I will have 2 or 3 kids, right? So, and then you hope that you know, oh, you can educate them so it will stop the population program. So something like perhaps this will be an example of cognitive dissonance.
Well, that sounds like a mental illness because it sounds like a disconnection from reality and common sense when evidence is available.
Well, yeah, you know, like we invent so many definitions and to defend also our culture and our mindset. So perhaps it's one of those cognitive dissonance, right?
Uh, I'm going to look it up too and see if we can come up with other examples. Cognitive dissonance. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude changes or attitude change, which is slightly different than what I talk about, which is incongruence. which would be more like somebody saying something and their body language would be showing that they're being not genuine or sincere, but this is more within, deeper down, because it could be somebody having two worldviews or values or ethics that are in conflict. It's almost like saying Christian Science or economic life, and being able to form arguments for two sides at the same time and representing two sides at the same time. So it's a form of mental illness of cultures that are unable to help themselves anymore. And again, somebody might say, oh no, we need to have more kids because one will be born a genius and then he'll fix everything or she'll fix everything, which is, whoa, okay, that's a Messiah kind of complex, and it's pretty scary. Now, if there was a Jesus, and it's 2,000 years ago, maybe this Jesus was just like, hey, let's do things different. This is not going to turn out well. You can see you have, what the term would be cognitive dissonance. You're being incongruent. And he or she was ignored. And there was probably many people like this who were going against the norm, and evidence didn't make a difference with the norm. And I don't know, this Jesus story, whether he lived or not, it must have been through the telephone game, totally been misinterpreted. And I'm looking at Diane Fossey, one of the three great primatologist ladies, and in a short period of time, although she wrote about conservation, she said that she was not for people invading the habitats of gorillas, and yet in her name, organizations were formed. So again, if Jesus lived, why does everybody that follow his teachings act differently than what he's teaching? That's some serious mental illness, and I don't need to travel in any more countries to know this is the norm of 99.6% of people that claim to follow his teachings, and yet they're acting totally different. Now, this Diane Fossey lady, including the other primatologists who are alive today, are not discussing this. They're not pointing out this incongruence, this cognitive dissonance, because people are now going against what she said, using her name to raise money, and then again go into the habitats of gorillas and disturbing them. And these are one of the four great apes who are not really that different from us, and we're not any smarter than them. And so it's pretty sad that even in a short time, and Greta, the climate emergency activist, who is alive now and who's saying now, don't do this, don't say this in my name, and it's still happening now. So we can't even have heroes now that we actually define properly or follow properly. Where are our role models? We lost the ability to even have mentors or guides to even guide us. We're totally off path with this cognitive dissonance and this incongruence that hardly anybody will admit to or work on in their lives or talk about. So again, these are the psychological aspects that makes us not even have the conversations about. There's people on a space station, and when they come back, we're noticing, oh my God, your body is really taking a hit from being without gravity. And yet we think that going that far away, if we understand how far it is based on the speed of light and the difference just between the Earth and the Moon, is that somehow our bodies would even survive, and that there's science to actually make them survive, and then that we're getting there where, it'd be more like our grandkids that would be getting there. And if we don't have collective learning, and we program software like we do now to teach stuff that actually keeps breaking down and is programmed by people that don't know much because they're pursuing just elitism in education, it's really, in so many ways, the physiology, the science of the distance of succeeding in creating a ship, in even knowing for sure that where they're going is actually going to be a place they're not going to say we screwed up. This is not even better than if we would have just been on the moon. So nobody's talking about this. And if we did, I think it would be more people would actually start being eco activists or eco warriors, or start wanting to develop more scientific knowledge of these things.
Well, I don't think that nobody's talking about it, like as for the ecocentristic, proposals and worldview, it was already around 50, 60 years ago. And I think I would mention the Venus Project and the founder, Jack Fresco, who advocated for many, now he's deceased, for many decades, this point of view. And I think scientists as Carl Sagan also did that with their, Cosmos series, the series of documentaries Cosmos, as far as I remember, was
How do
called.
you explain that these people were ahead of their time and paradigms, and they even had followers, and yet their followers can't even keep up what they were doing, which is, again, is saying even during the lifetime, not 2,000 years later, they can't even, because if you're that great and people follow you, and suddenly there's like 100 or 1,000 people like you, then the paradigms would change, but they're not changing. So what's happening to not change these paradigms?
Okay, so I'll try to finish my point, is that, and at the same time answering your question, having followers is not enough at all. You have to have their specific percentage of called the critical mass. The critical mass is, to my knowledge, just 3% of the population. So having even 1,000 followers, it wouldn't be enough. So 3% of the population, you could count how much it is, right? So you could count it per country, or how you counted it by the division of administrative divisions. But still, you could have followers, but how much is the population, right? So it doesn't mean that followers of people who advocated this kind of worldview of Earthship, what was advocated by Buckminster Fuller, right? Buckminster Fuller. They didn't hit the critical mass. So, and even though you're alone or you're in a team, that's not enough to change their dominant worldview, a dominant value system of billions of people. We have billions of people, so, or millions of people, right? To say, if you can change the dominant worldview of the Western world, let's say, right? So the Western world could be the role modeling the further countries, but what now the Western world is doing is role modeling of for high consumption, for example. And so the poorer country or less developed countries, they want to be more developed countries as the Western world. And there is no fault in them, because that's what the Western world is advocating, right? It's high consumption or high consumed level of light, right? A level of lifestyle of high consumption. So unless we hit the critical mass, and that's what, for example, the movement that I also a part of Extinction Rebellion is doing, they're trying to reach the critical mass, to spread the awareness, and not only the awareness, because we can talk about this stuff, and there are people talking about this stuff, though their talk is quite weak, because they still think that the politics will solve the problems, all the problems of politicians, or we can have we can have that, we need to have politics to change the things. But the talk is not enough. So I'll finish here by the conclusion is that we have to do an action. And the critical mass is 3%, is the people who are doing the action, not just talking. We can talk all 90%, but talk is not an action. Examples of action is being a part of a movement, is doing educating, is doing the educational part, is doing their awareness, spreading their awareness,
Yeah, but
going
suppose
going out to the street, like joining an organization. This is an action. This is a part of the action. Teaming up with people, working collaboratively. The other thing that I'm not going to talk about that, but I've been through the experience of joining many movements, and I know that even those movements towards the worldview of our ecocentrism, the possible ecocentrism, they cannot work with each other. So there is another challenge at another level. It's not only the educational challenge of spreading the awareness and hitting the critical mass, and also getting the critical mass to join the action, but between those movements, there is no collaborative platform that they can come together and say, look, even though our methods differ, but our goal is the same. Let's work together. Every organization, every movement, let's put our resources in that. I'm not saying, oh, we actually are different from you. So instead of focusing on differences, we need to focus on commonality and the common goal. And this is another challenge at another level.
So I don't know as much as you do about the Extinction Rebellion, but one thing that I did write one time that seemed like an objective kind of write-up was very positive. Again, people have to be careful when they choose the term of something without defining it. I mean, people that join it, they probably understand why it's called the Extinction Rebellion, but again, they don't seem to realize the ignorance of the masses. So that's why they might never reach their 3%. And I think that Jacques Fresco had a lot of positive things, but again, I think he was also an example of someone that didn't have a good balance of different types of intelligence to possibly be a leader and grow this movement, because just having the right solutions has happened many times in history, but why it's not being implemented, it has to go through stages of understanding why it's important and a benefit to all, and also how to implement it, and also what the next stages are after that first implementation of certain things are, because it's an ongoing thing. There's no final goal, and people have to accept that. So here's a spectrum. Let's say that this would be like an ecocentric humanist worldview, and that would mean that we put our biosphere first before us, but humanism also talks about it's our responsibility to solve our own problems that we created, not wait for miracles or just try to invent technology that again will be programmed by people with the wrong worldviews or understanding of things to not even work. We have to understand there's no saviors coming. There's no Earth-like planet this close to us. So this would be one extreme of a worldview that would be successful in all sorts of ways. Now here we might have, let's call it anthropocentric, okay, which in some ways is the opposite of this, but it's still on the spectrum. Because we also have people who are even lower. They're ethnocentric. That means they don't even believe that their species is similar. They believe their culture is better than all cultures, and that is so common. And then you're talking about ego, which is just that one single person. And over years and years of observations, the doctor of eugenics here is noticing that we've never been close to this. We gravitate around this and are very proud, although there's a lot of evidence that says this leads to our evolutionary end. But I'm seeing things get worse towards ethnocentrism, which means cultural ideologies. Ours is better than yours, when none are actually good. Make America great again. Well, what history book are you looking at that it was great? And how do you define great? You want to use the English word great? And then there's ego. And I really believe that we're between these last two and going that way. So for me, if there's any group, whether it's Extinction Rebellion or any others that are trying to move the 3%, and by the way, I believe it's 66% for a paradigm shift, not 3, unless 3 are going to be some sort of they'll have particular powers and they'll be able to work on like a 500-year plan or something. And then I think whatever group working on 3% should actually be talking about this actual spectrum, and everything else will fix itself, because again, they're working on 3% of psychology, but we're not admitting that we're all really on the spectrum, and it's worse than before, and it's getting worse. I'm noticing it in everybody, and it's really when you explain it to them, and they kind of gave you enough attention to understand it, I can still see that there was no schema, so it bounced off, or one ear out the other, and then they don't know how to put it together. So that should be part of this 3%. It should be forming people to actually be able to have functioning brains again. Because as much as you do the perfect TED Talk, it's perfectly done. There isn't even really 100,000 people on Earth that will actually be able to manifest this solution in this TED Talk. So that's the spectrum we need to be working on.
Yeah, just I'll just like say a word about an interesting thing that Extinction Rebellion is basically doing a good job in terms of commonality, uniting different organizations. They are working with different organizations, also because they do not have an agenda. So the time when you start having an agenda and you try to collaborate, and if you find movements or organizations that do not agree with your agenda, that's where your collaboration stops. It never begins.
Well, what would the Extinction Rebellion do? Let's say some of their...
That's the point. They grow fast, and that's what I also joined. That's why I also joined, in order to learn and in order to understand the social movements in general. And of course, the first priority is because I care and I can contribute somehow my skills, perhaps. So they do things without the agenda, right? So they do not say, like, what would polarize people? What would polarize people is the extraction of fossil fuels versus the extraction of renewables. Because the renewable energy is also a form of extraction, of the natural extraction, of going and exploiting the seabed, destroying for the minerals and metals that we need for renewables in order to satisfy our energy needs, which is completely, detrimental to the environment, destructive. So there is no polarization in that space, we just say that we are in the climate emergency and extinction crisis. And the crisis that also, by the way, not so many environmentalists really few talk about the depletion of our nitrogen. So the loss of nitrogen is a really huge problem that really few activists talk about. But anyway.
Irina, if you knew of any studies, and I think you might have sent me links and I didn't look at them, that said that we're actually creating an imbalance in the gases in the atmosphere that Gaia theory can explain has been stable for a long time, and which would include what is important to us, such as oxygen, not just the greenhouse gases or nitrogen or other things. So that's something that we should be hearing in the news, imbalances, and also other things that are creating respiratory diseases, which is not related to viruses, which is related to the toxins of our consumption and lifestyle kind of cultures. So yeah, I'm worried. Now, you were talking about Extinction Rebellion, also almost trying to say that you see them start up stuff and then do they move on, or it fails and then they go try collaborating somewhere else, and sometimes that succeeds there.
So what I was trying to say is that they don't have an agenda such as like, okay, let's turn to the renewables because it's an agenda. It goes politically. So it's, let's say we have two parties. One party is pro fossil fuels, like in the United States, and the other one is against this. So they're pro renewables, right? But none of these parties, of course, talk about their the most important thing that we need to do is to cut off critically, at critical rate, our consumption. Nobody talks about it because renewables imply that you will still have economic growth. Fossil fuels imply you will still economic growth, but you have to go degrowth because there is plenty of scientific evidence that we have to go degrowth very, very fast, like this. So, you know, that's why they're talking about the. Let me
sorry,
finish.
I'm interrupting you because I need to be sure I understand what you're saying. Did you say growth? The word growth? We need to go to growth?
Degrowth.
Huh?
Degrowth.
Okay, so do the opposite of
yes, degrowth.
Economic progress,
degrowth.
Growth in consuming.
It's called economic degrowth.
Okay.
It's called economic degrowth. Yes, okay. Yeah, this is a terminology. Okay, so and that is why like they can they just say that we need to go degrowth because of their evidence that we are in an extinction crisis, we in the climate emergency, and there is a scientific evidence of that. That's it. They don't tell you what to do, and that's where the space for people to come in and say. So they don't provide the solutions. So on the other side, that is why they have a very, very open door for many organizations or many movements to come in, because they don't have a fixed agenda. What is the agenda? I tell you what to do, right? What the solutions are, right? So on the other side is the Venus Project that have the solutions, but they don't grow their movements because they say, if you don't agree with our solutions and agenda, sorry, we cannot collaborate with you, right? And this is the interesting thing that I've been taking part in as a volunteer on the both side, right? And what I was just thinking, how can we get this together combined, right? So we have the Extinction Rebellion, which is huge, and I think it will always grow. There is a trend for it, open door. And if we just hit the critical mass with the Extinction Rebellion and then apply the solutions what the Venus Project proposes, right? That would be a very good opportunity to see something changing. But so the problem is that now it's like, there is no basis for collaboration of not only the Venus Project, but many projects that proposing. But the Venus Project, I would say, is what is a more kind of comprehensible, more complete, specific proposals that what needs to be done. And therefore, as well, of course, the cutting of the high consumption and all this garbage that we don't need like completely changing the system, right? The system change. So if they're all organizations for the systems change, not politically aligned with any parties, not agenda alive, right? Or monetary aligned, like we're aligned with money, or money kind of like their goal is to make money. If all these movements would come together, that will be, I think that will be some hope here.
Thank you. I'll try to, because we're getting close to our goal of finishing up, and you'll get a chance to maybe give your conclusion, because maybe we'll try to finish in about 10 minutes. I'll try to see what I can understand about this. From what you said, Extinction Rebellion, if it has no goal or motivation, or I can't remember the exact word you use, expectation or purpose.
Agenda.
Agenda, yeah, that's the better word, and that's the one I was looking for. So if they have none, well, it's hard to believe they have none, but maybe they're not pushing one. Maybe what they're doing is they're just trying to create collaborations between specialists, whether these specialists are just in the research development stage and would even have the different types of collaborative intelligence, as social creatures to actually get into the, applying the solutions. So they're just creating maybe activists, which is very important. But I'm not sure if you find it entirely more positive or negative, and you don't have to answer that, what the Extinction Rebellion is doing. And then I know that you've been involved with the Venus Project a long time, and a little bit of research that I did into that, and I was going to go volunteer there in Venus, Florida, and I was stopped at the border by a pretty arrogant, cocky, and redneck type of customs agents who were very proud of the new president picture on their wall, and who probably most of them now might not even want to vote for him anymore. But when I contacted the Venus Project, I didn't get the sense that they wanted money from me, but I also didn't get the sense that they cared at all in any way to have me come down there and volunteer in a hands-on way. And this is way pre-COVID, where the fears of in-person interactions wasn't there. So I'm not sure. I didn't get the sense that there was an ability for them to work in a group and grow, because maybe the plans are, as modernity is speeding up, are a little bit outdated, and they're a little bit also limited as a way to solve the entire system. And I don't want to use a system like you. I think the only way I want to use system in these types of conversations, we can say this system of, various types of ways to interpret reality that now are so insane that we don't even realize that we are all almost our own worst enemies, in the sense that we don't realize that we're working in different ways. And then, of course, we have to keep talking about egocentrism. Egocentrism. For example, when you've been with Extinction Rebellion a shorter time, but longer with Venus Project. Now, of course, you would say it's great if these two could come together because they'd complement each other, but that would also have the element of finalizing your life, or to complement your life choices in the last few years on what you focused on. But I have to agree with you that there's a serious lack of collaboration. And I think what we should be working on as we work on this mental issue spectrum is we have to work on why is there so many smart people have great ideas for solutions and we've never implemented them, and it always gets blocked at collaboration before. So my experience is in the north of Vancouver Island. I go to this retreat. I paid a lot of money for it, and I wanted to believe that these would be mentors and role models. And there was an exercise that was very important to me, because we had to play the roles of representing different species, and I was, I think, an oak tree. And we were discussing, what about these people-primates there? Why are they acting like this? And it's bad for all of us. And I was mad, and I was the only one in the tree as being mad. And I thought it was weird that the other people were not. That's not what that bird would be saying, or that's not what that insect would be saying. And sure enough, during that weekend retreat that I paid a lot of money for, the neighbor of this person decided to make some money by getting a lumber company chopped down. So we're hearing these chainsaws. This is very ironic. We're hearing chainsaws. And the neighbor is saying, oh, the lady who actually was the facilitator, main facilitator. This was right beside this beautiful property that we walked in and did exercises, and we're hearing this chainsaw. The trees are coming down right beside her property, and she doesn't realize that, she thinks the neighbor owns land, as if that's not a mental illness, and that it's normal, it's his choice, and she wouldn't get mad. And this is all during this exercise, and I'm this oak tree. It's like, the fuck? People can't even get into the right worldview. And again, if I talk about this, oh yeah. And it was sad. And I also went to an eco village where we actually kind of were given on a Buddhist temple kind of mountaintop on Salt Spring Island some weekend time and a week time to prepare these workshops. And again, I'm seeing how it's great. Yeah, we're working together with these little life skills combined with living skills workshops where one of us is blind, the other is can't speak, the other one has one arm, and we're trying to work as a team to start a fire. And I think it was more because of me we succeeded. We actually burned a little bit of the facilitator's jacket. I didn't think we'd get it that well. And so, but I see another workshop for building a bow and arrow, but I'm also noticing none of them have life skills that they would actually be able to, if there was an earthquake and Vancouver Island would be cut off from most of its resources that now comes from the mainland instead of growing its own food, is that now, okay, sure, if this happened when they're on there, oh my God, during this weekend, we can't go back, there's been this big earthquake. is they would survive a little bit longer in the woods, but they would still be turning against themselves without these human thinking tools that social creatures should have mastered. So again, I'm getting back to there's something wrong up here, and you're noticing it too. And I think the only system word we should be talking about is this, because the rest of the system is fine without us. And the only way the system is going bad is because of us and up here. And again, we're not even talking about overpopulation. Is Extinction Rebellion talking about this? If they want to degrowth, are they talking about, you know, a population, a birth control, things like this? That's my conclusion. What's yours? And then I'll close it off.
Yeah, that's my conclusion. I would just share a little bit that maybe my reflection, because a little bit from my personal reflection and based on my personal experience, being as an activist or volunteer or educator, like, you know, myself also I'm a teacher. And so as I also my yeah and a dance teacher now, so I'm trying. But anyway, it's the personal growth in the field of a personal growth. I'm trying to, since already for a few years, I'm trying to build my own, you know, teaching material to go with my teaching material to kids. And there are really few schools who are interested, because, you know, and the kind of like when you teach critical thinking or scientific literacy, not so many schools will be interested, but there are some.
Irina, there's a difference between the schools and the children, because chances are, if you were given a chance to talk to the children and demonstrate, most of the children would be very interested.
It's true. It's true.
So that's
yeah,
a flaw.
true.
That's a flaw here, that the adults or management teams or schools or school boards are preventing this progress, right?
Yes, it's true. It's true. Yeah, but you know, like I'm trying my best to go through different sources and to find those kind of schools who are open to that, because parents open. You know, it's not like the schools thing. It's also the parents thing. You know, mostly it's parents things, because parents pay money. And if parents pay money for something they're not interested in, they're not going to pay money, right? So in order to survive in this system, you have to teach for money, or at least a little bit. And on my, I would say, the personal growth as well, but not related to my career. I also trying to do something myself, because I found out this is the thing that if I write, and I write articles, and if they're helpful somehow for pointing out the flaws in our system, then I maybe would be more efficient, rather than, you know, just only contributing to the project and knowing that that's actually is not really scientifically backed up, or perhaps because there is like some lack of information. And so all of this reflection is kind of going more to the individual level of work, that I'm now contributing more to individual level of work rather than, you know, teaming up. But I would say teaming up and collaborating with people is really critical and crucial for what you're saying is a shift in the paradigm of the system. And I'm very, very interested in collaborating with others. It's just you know, not so many people, or maybe I don't myself put enough effort into collaboration. But if somebody, you know, watches our talk and want to join in or contact us and say, hey, like let's do something together, like I would be really, really, like it will be really, really welcome from my side. So that's how I wanted to, personally to make a conclusion for this talk.
Okay, and if you can maybe send me, because I'm just going to load this video right away because it's late. If you can send me the contact information for you, you want me to put with this video, I'll add it maybe tomorrow. I'll just load the video now. And also, when you write about systems yourself, maybe just give me a couple of lines on what you mean by that, just to clarify what you were saying at the end. For example, do you mean the education system, for example, or something like that? So define what you mean that you're working on as system. Now, last question for you that should be a very short answer that you can decide with me is, aside from naming this video post, the next one in my series, I think it'll be 670 for the Master of Science Ecocentric Humanism, is what do you think should be the second part of this title? And at first I was going to say something about false hope in Earth-like planets, but I think we deviated a lot, but I think in a positive way, because we're really going back to the mind game. So what do you think? I'm thinking maybe why are we moving away from systems thinking, maybe, or like what would be a good title with my course title for our subject of conversation today?
Well, if you want to touch upon the system thinking, yeah, I think it's quite a good idea to to have
for today's conversation. What is a good title?
Sorry, yeah, for today's, you mean the title for today's conversation? Is that
Yeah,
what
I don't think I'm going to call it Earth type planet because we didn't talk much about that. What do you think we should call it?
Oh, okay. We talked a lot, I think a lot about your questions, what your questions are, right? What prevents us to develop a more ecocentric mindset, right? I think we talked about those factors a lot. But something related to the human mind or our states of mind right now, and factors that preventing us to develop a more ecocentric mentality, I would say.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things, but they look a little bit too long. So give me something short, really short. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, I have a problem with short things. That's why my articles titles are all long. Okay.
I would say maximum 6 words.
Factors.
So far, what I've got is.
I want to say just moving. General conversation of moving from ecocentrism to ecocentrism. I don't know. It's just general title.
Okay, I was thinking of something at the same time you said that, and I lost it. I was thinking maybe moving towards an awareness of systems type thinking, maybe.
Yeah, if there are 6 words as you want, yeah, of course.
Because we're not going to succeed. We have to just move towards the idea that there's different levels of it and different, intensities of being successful at it. And we talked a little bit about the spectrum. Like, one, anthropocentrism is nice in a way if you're on an island where most of what's going wrong is people arguing among themselves. Then an anthropocentric worldview where people unite, we're all the same, would be good. But that's really outdated with what's happening on the planet now. And of course, if we could have jumped towards ecocentrism at the beginning, then we wouldn't have had that much if we're all one global life form. So how about moving towards an awareness of systems thinking? No, I don't want to say
sure.
I don't want to say systems thinking. I want to say systems types of thinking. I think for most of the general viewer would be better, because systems thinking, again, and I tested this with the Ecology of Systems Thinking Facebook group, and nobody defines it the same way. So it's kind of, we have to say systems types of thinking, and I think we gave some explanations or ideas. Okay, so I'm going to do that one instead of the ones I had before. For example, Martin and Irina not fighting for about an hour and a half. Title. or causes of dysfunctional worldviews, but it kind of goes a little bit in there.
Yeah, so, it goes, yeah.
After 4 years, Martin and Irina somewhat starting to collaborate could be the title.
No, but number 2 is still good. Causes of dysfunctional, what's that? Of dysfunctional mind.
Causes of ongoing, maybe dysfunctional worldviews.
Because we talk about causes.
I know, we talked a little bit about what led to them, like agriculture and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go with number 2, and maybe I'll finish with no blood being spilled. Okay, so thank you very much. It's amazing how in space all you need is one sweater to stay warm. You are a very warm lady. So thank you for participating again in a short time with me, because I wish we would work on more things. And maybe the thing that we could work on next time is a little bit about what we've noticed as a common issue is maybe suggesting solutions for collaborations not ending so easily, right? Which would be good for us, but also with the groups. And I've kind of stopped years ago wanting to be an activist, because again, I've noticed this. But again, when I stop being like that, guess what? I'm losing my collaborative skills.
Yeah.
So that means if I find people,
that's what I say.
Inviting you, we're so excited about your program. I'm like super rusty to interact with people now. So that means that, you know, this is serious, even with us, not with just groups. So thank you. And I'm going to stop the recording, and if something goes wrong, I'll let you know. Okay, and then we'll use yours. Thank you, Irina. Have a good day, and have a good night for me. Bye-bye.
Bye.